When you hear about ancient kingdoms, you probably think about the Greeks, the Romans, the Aztecs, and the Egyptians. There are a lot more that you may not have heard of. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the Kingdom of Dál Riata, whose territory covered what is now Argyll, or the coast of the Gauls in Scotland, and part of County Antrim and Northern Ireland across the sea. They were known as the seafaring people who crossed the distance easily by boat. So let's get going. Dál Riata consisted of 4 main kindreds or tribes, each with their own chief. Cynal MacGavran, based in Kintyre, Cynal Angasa, based in Islay, Cynal Loran, who gave their name to the district of Lorn, and Cynal Comgar, who gave their name to Cowal. The hill fort of Dunnard is believed to have been its capital. Other royal forts include Dunalley, Dunverty, and Dunseverick. Within Dál Riata was the important monastery of Iona, which played a key role in the spread of Celtic Christianity throughout northern Britain and in the development of insular art. Iona was a centre of learning and produced many important manuscripts. Dál Riata had a strong seafaring culture, as I mentioned, and an extremely large naval fleet which was tribal and piratic. The landscape was an archipelago with many islands and peninsulas. This and the difficulty of overland travel at the time meant that travel by sea was just easier. You could move any distance and you could perform long distance trade, local trade, so this was very significant to the people at the time. No written accounts exist for before when the Christians had moved into Dál Riata, and the earliest known records come from the chroniclers of Iona and Irish monasteries. One much later writing is the Dwyn Albannach, which is the Song of the Scots, written in the 11th century, which tells us about the 3 sons of Eric, who was the king of the Irish Dál Riata. His sons were Fergus Mór, Loan, and Angus, who conquered Alba, or Scotland, in around 500 AD. The version of history in the Dwyn Albannach has long been accepted, although it is preceded by the fictional tale of Albinus and Brutus, who supposedly come from Troy and conquered Britain. By the mid-6th century, the Dál Riata in Scotland had come under serious threat from Breda I, king of the Picts, whilst the Irish portion faced their own hostilities from the Dál Araid of Ulaid, resulting in their seeking aid from the northern Uí Níl. Dál Riata had reached its greatest extent in the reign of Aidan MacGavran, who was said to have been consecrated by Columba, who Aidan had given the island of Iona off the coast of Scotland to. Columba was also a Cynal prince. He negotiated an alliance between the Dál Riata and the Cynal, who were the ruling dynasty of the northern Uí Níl. In 575, at the Convention of Drumset near Limavady, in attendance were Columba, Aidan MacGavran, and Ead Mac Éanmuric, king of the northern Uí Níl and High King of Ireland. What was actually discussed at Drumset is a matter of debate. Various suggestions are around to tell us what it may have been, to determine the constitutional status of both parts of Dál Riata, to determine the status of Irish Dál Riata, with it having its own king, that Dál Riata was to become independent of the High King of Ireland, and that the Irish part of Dál Riata would pay tribute to the High King and support him with land forces, while the Scottish part would be independent, but support the High King with its fleet when needed. The after effect of the Battle of Magrath on the side of the Scottish Dál Riata appears to have resulted in it becoming a tributary to Northumbrian kings, which lasted until the Pictish king Brodie MacBilly defeated Ecgfrith of Northumbria at Darnachtan in 685. It's not certain that this objection ended in 685, although it's usually assumed to be the case. It does appear that Ecgbert Eating made some effort to stop the Picts under Angus MacFergusa after crushing the Dál Riata in 740. Whether this means that the tributary relationship hadn't ended in 685, if Egbert was only looking to prevent the growth of Pictish power, is uncertain, we're just not sure. Interestingly though, in 741, the Dál Riata just disappears from all Irish records for an entire generation, just poof, gone. From here, it's unlikely that the Dál Riata was ruled directly by Pictish kings, but it is argued that Domnall, son of Constantine mac Fergusa, was king of Dál Riata from 811 to 835. It was apparently followed by the last named king that we have of the Dál Riata, Aed mac Banata, who was killed in the Great Pictish defeat at 839 when the Vikings attacked. By the 9th century, the Picts were becoming more Gaelicised, and there is some evidence and belief that there was a merger of the Dál Riata and the Pictish kingship. The Dál Riata and the Pictish kingship. Traditionally, this is attributed to Cned mac Alpine, or Kenneth mac Alpine, who became king of the Picts in about 843. Some evidence says that Cned was king of the Dál Riata for 2 years before this, though. Under the House of Alpine, Dál Riata and Pictland merged to form the Kingdom of Alba, or Scotland. During the time of St. Patrick, Dál Riata kings thought that they were descended from Celtic gods, and pagans in the region viewed certain springs and spirit-inhabited groves as sacred. Columba's founding of Iona in the bounds of the Dál Riata ensured that the kingdom would be of great importance in the spread of Christianity in northern Britain, not only to Pictland, but also to Northumbria, via Lindisfarne, to Mercia, and beyond. Although the monastery of Iona belonged to the Canal of the northern Ulniel, and not to the Dál Riata, it had a close tie to the Canal MacRaven, which might make the annals less than entirely impartial. One of the founding sons mentioned earlier, Fergus Mór mac Airt, while his historicalness is debatable, his posthumous importance as the founder of Scotland in the national myth of medieval and Renaissance Scotland is not in any doubt. Rulers of Scotland from Cned mac Alpine until the present time claimed descent from Fergus. James VI shared the same view on the origins of his line, describing himself in one of many verses written to his wife Anne of Denmark as the happy monarch sprung of Fergus's race. And James VI wasn't the last ruler to share this belief. The Great Gallery of the Palace of Holyrood House in Edinburgh was decorated with 89 of Jacob de Wet portraits of Scottish monarchs, from Fergus all the way to Charles II, produced to the order of James's grandson. James II of England and Ireland, who was James VII in Scotland, was welcomed at Kilkenny during the Williamite War, declaring, "We conducted a Fergus to Scotland. We welcome in James II, the undoubted heir of Fergus, by lineal descent of 110 crowned heads." One important aspect of the Dál Riata's life, and was also pretty normal at the time, was subsistence farming, which was the occupation of most people. Oats and barley were the main cereal crops, pastoralism was especially important, and transhumance, which means the seasonal movement of people with their livestock between fixed summer and winter pastures, so they were somewhat nomadic in their grazing practices. And this was common in many places. Some areas, most notably Islay, were especially fertile, and good grazing would have been available year-round, just as it was in Ireland. Tari was farmed in later times for its oats and barley, while smaller uninhabited islands were used to keep sheep. And if you ever met a sheep, how they managed to keep them on the islands, I will never know. The island, until later, was notable for its inshore fisheries and for plenty of shellfish, so seafood was likely to have been an important part of their diet as well. And there we go, that is the history of the Dál Riata and a few of the other kinship and tribes within it that formed its foundation, and largely how it ended after it ended up blending in with the Picts and becoming the Kingdom of Alba. It's quite amazing how they managed to keep the kingdom going between two land masses over in Ireland and in Scotland, although they obviously diverged at some parts, considering they disappeared from Irish records for an entire generation. It makes you wonder what was going on at the time in both places and how they functioned from that point, obviously joining up again much later. So thank you for making it to the end of the video. This is probably my longest one on the channel so far because there was a lot to cover. The Dál Riata were quite interesting in the people within them as well. I'd like to look at a few of them more in detail later on, but I'll leave that up to you guys in the comment as well. Tell me what you guys want to see, or if you'd like me to branch out to another country or where we're going to be going next after we've covered some more videos in the Isles. Please don't forget to share, like and subscribe to the channel. I have my Twitter where I'm quite active, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!